Well, it seems fitting that I'm here chatting about hops for HerbRally, since Mason and I have shared many fun times over a pint or two of fermented hops. And while we know the benefits of hops goes far beyond beer, we might as well start there. For hundreds of years, hops have been a key ingredient in making beer. Hops have become even more popular in recent years with the rise of artisan breweries and beers. Breweries throughout the Pacific Northwest that specialize in bitter India pale ales often offer a range of IPAs with detailed descriptions, highlighting the citrus and fruity undertones lent by various varieties of hops. It's not unlike descriptions of fine wines. There is an entire subculture obsessed with hops in its fermented state. There's really something about this plant family, the Cannabinaceae, that inspires obsession in its enthusiasts. Before trendy bars started highlighting their hoppy brews, the hop plant was used as traditional herbal medicine. With their aromatic and pungent scent, hop strobiles have been prized for their ability to help people relax. This use dates back thousands of years, at least since the 9th century. Let's look at a brief history of hops and beer. Native to Western Asia, Europe, and North America, hops have many traditional uses. The fiber in the vines was used to make a rope or cordage, and the leaves and strobiles were used as a dye plant. Hop strobiles were used topically to heal wounds and for a variety of medicinal uses. The first recorded use of hops for beer comes from a monastery in northern France from 822 CE. Some surmise that hops were a desired ingredient in monastery beers in particular because of their ability to inhibit sexual desire. Several hundred years later, hops were being actively cultivated in Germany for beer. Years later in Europe, it was declared that hops were a required ingredient for beer. This may have been for reasons of taxation, but in addition to adding flavor, hops also stabilize beer, giving it a much longer shelf life. Hops are a bitter, relaxing nervine and are both cooling and drying. They're used for many types of nervous tension, especially when associated with digestive distress, pain, spasms, or sexual overstimulation. They're used specifically for muscle tension, including intestinal cramping and menstrual cramps. Herbalist Matt Wood says that hops are suited to people with intense personalities and strong emotions that result in nervous exhaustion, insomnia, and worry. As a relaxing nervine, hops have been shown to decrease stress during stressful situations. In a 2018 double-blind, placebo-controlled study, researchers gave healthy volunteers a stressful test. Those drinking an extract of hops had fewer markers of stress than those taking a placebo. Another study showed that when taken over a 4-week period, an extract of hops has been shown to decrease depression, anxiety, and stress in young adults. The relaxing and mild sedative properties of hops are often useful for people with difficulty sleeping. Peter Holmes, author of The Energetics of Western Herbs, one of my favorite books, says hops fits the profile of a hot type insomnia. In other words, people who struggle with sleep and who also feel hot and restless can benefit from hops' cooling abilities. One study looked at the sedative qualities of a non-alcoholic beer made with hops in a population of people who are under a lot of work stress, nurses. The research found that the nurses drinking the hops-infused non-alcoholic beer demonstrated improved nighttime sleep quality. Cheryl Tilner, author of Herbal ABCs, says, "When you are in need of a bitter that also helps alleviate nervous exhaustion, anxiety, neuralgias, and promote sleeps, hop could be your herb." Hops' bitter and pungent taste make them an excellent aromatic digestive herb. They're commonly used for people with upper gastric digestive disorders, including loss of appetite, stagnant digestion, weak digestion, gas, and bloating. It's likely that hops stimulate bile production and release, thus helping people to better digest fats. Think of hops specifically when there's indigestion associated with nervous tension. Historically, hops were used to get rid of worms in the digestive tract. They can also relax intestinal cramping with their antispasmodic effects. Metabolic syndromes, which include insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, affect as many as 30% of the population in the United States. Metabolic syndromes often negatively affect heart health as well. While the causes and therefore the approaches for these diseases are really complex, numerous studies have shown that hops have many benefits for people with metabolic syndromes. For example, about 1,000 polyphenolic substances have been found in hop strobiles, and many of those polyphenols have been shown to have a beneficial effect on cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and support heart health. Other examples of hops' beneficial effects include 2 studies that have been shown that an extract of hops is helpful in reducing body fat in healthy adults. An extract of hops also was shown to benefit acute endothelial function, which is the performance of the membranes lining the heart and blood vessels. And this was in both smokers and non-smokers. Hops can be beneficial for the skin too. They're considered a mild alternative herb, and they are also a mild diuretic. They're used to help clear heat and damp from the body in the sense of traditional Chinese medicine. Herbalist Peter Holmes uses hops to clear damp heat from the skin, especially when there's concurrent inflammation such as eczema and acne. Hops affect hormones in a variety of ways. For example, they have some phytoestrogenic qualities that have been shown to benefit women with menopausal symptoms. In one study, 120 women in the early stages of menopause were given either a hops extract or a placebo for 12 weeks. Those taking the hops extract had significantly fewer hot flashes than those taking the placebo. Clinical herbalists will often attest that there's rarely that one thing or just that one herb that's going to make all the difference, especially when looking at chronic illness or chronic health problems. Instead, it's the combination of many different things. That's why the following study was so interesting to me. Researchers looked at postmenopausal women with metabolic syndrome. Every woman in the study was instructed to consume a modified Mediterranean-style, low glycemic load diet and to engage in aerobic exercise. Then, of those women, half the women were given some nutrients to take. Those were a hops extract, 100 milligrams of berberine sulfate, 500 IUs of vitamin D, and 500 milligrams of vitamin K. They took those twice daily. The people in the study who are taking the herbs and the nutrients produced a more favorable bone biomarker profile indicative of healthy bone metabolism compared to those who did not. So again, interesting study because it showed people doing a variety of different things for their health, and then those who did ate in a particular way and exercise in a particular way, but also took those nutrients, had better bone health. All right, let's talk about botanical identification. Well, hands down, hops wins the prize for the coolest botanical name. And I would say if you haven't said it yet, you should go ahead and try it. It's Humulus lupulus. Now go ahead and say that 3 times fast. I'm not even going to try it on the recording. Humulus lupulus. It's a really fun one. Humulus comes from the Latin word humus, meaning earth, and lupulus comes from lupus or wolf. The hop plant is native to Europe, Western Asia, and North America. It's dioecious, meaning that there are both female and male flowers, and they're on separate plants. And in herbalism, we use the cone-like flowers or strobiles from the female plant. This is a vivacious perennial vine. Botanically speaking, it's actually a bine, like B as in boy, but everyone calls it a vine, so I'm just going to keep doing that to avoid confusion. But this vivacious vine can quickly wind up trellises and walls. When it's grown for cultivation, it's often grown on wire trellises that are up to 25 feet tall. It has these really coarse hairs along the stems, and which help it to hold on to structure. So it kind of wraps itself around these structures, and those coarse hairs help keep it up. It grows in a lot of different zones, 3 through 8 in the USDA plant hardiness zones, and it requires minimal maintenance. The leaves are palmate with 3 to 5 serrated lobes, and the female plants produce these bright green cone-like fruits or strobiles that are covered in the sticky resinous yellow substance called lupulin. These papery light aromatic fruits are what's used to make beer and herbal medicines. All right, so we know that hops are relaxing nervine. We can use them for digestion. We can use them to relax muscle tension and pain. So how do we go ahead and use them? So hops are definitely bitter, and depending on your tolerance for bitter, hops have a variety of different preparation methods. So they can be made into a tea, preferably a long infusion, but due to that overt bitterness, tea can be hard to consume, especially on a long-term basis. As a result, many herbalists prefer to use hops as a tincture, and that minimizes the amount of bitter liquid that needs to be consumed. Many of the studies that I mentioned were using standardized hops extracts, and so those are sold as capsules in health food stores. And I generally prefer whole plant medicine, but capsules in this case can be one way to take bitter medicine. Hops definitely have an intriguing pungent and aromatic scent. The dried strobiles can be added to pillows or sachets, and then you can smell those at bedtime to promote sleep and relaxation. Hops can also be used in a bath before going to bed to help promote sleep. And how I would do this is make a strong tea from the hops, strain that off, and then add the water, the tea water to the bath water. Hops can also be used as a fomentation, which is a hot infusion of the tea placed on a cloth. It can also be used as a poultice, and you can use those both on boils, irritated skin, muscle spasms, and back pain. Of course, as we discussed, for many, hops are often served as beer or as a flavoring in kombucha or cider or other fermented beverages. For dosage, when taking as a tea, 1 to 2 grams, it doesn't sound like a lot, but those strobiles are very light. So I recommend 1 to 2 grams 3 times daily. It's best prepared as a long infusion, about 30 minutes minimum steeping time. Of course, as we mentioned, the tea can be hard to take, especially day in and day out because of the bitterness. So a tincture can be a great way to use that. If you're using dried strobiles, I'd do a 1 to 5 ratio, 60% alcohol. Take about 1.5 to 3 mils 3 times daily. Special considerations with hops. You want to avoid therapeutic dosages of hops with people who are already taking pharmaceuticals, sedatives, hypnotics, or antidepressants. There's some caution with using too much hops in someone who already has depression. There's also some caution during pregnancy, generally in those larger dosages. For best results, you want to use those strobiles within 6 months of drying because they can lose their pizzazz pretty quickly. Hops are a wonderful bitter, they're a relaxing nervine, and their benefits go far beyond that of beer. Think of it especially for promoting sleep, muscle relaxation, and healthy digestion. It's been my pleasure to share my love of hops with you. Ciao.